I've never seen that system work before. There's a lot of things I haven't seen before, but we got a pretty well-established procurement system in the United States government, starting with the GESA, who buys most of the stuff for the government. Then inside the Department of Defense, we have the Defense Logistics Agency, which was not used. And they put together this task force with a group of people who literally, when they showed up, they had to exchange business cards so they got to know each other in the middle of a disaster. And now we find out that they are facilitating the air bridge, which is a throwback to the saving the people in Berlin, the air bridge. But the air bridge is bringing stuff and giving to companies to sell to states and hospitals. I've never heard that supply chain before in my life. It has looked like they have let the literal wolf inside the hen house. We would not let contractors in my headquarters to see what RFPs. Normally this would go out in the form of a request for a proposal. But it sounds like they're making these decisions in cooperation with contractors inside of government headquarters. We don't operate that way. It's totally non-doctrinal. But some will say, well, we've never had a virus like this before. Well, we fought 2 world wars with this system. We fought Vietnam. We fought Desert Storm. We've done a lot of things with that supply system. And by and large, it worked. What they put together is something I've never heard of before. And there's a lot of things that happen. Maybe I'm just ignorant about it. But it sounds, and I would encourage the president, is there something not right about this? And looking at this thing in the rearview mirror, this is going to turn out real bad because we're not getting the effect. It'd be one thing if it was working and the hospital said, we're getting this stuff. And the state said they were getting this stuff. And the governor of Louisiana said, we're getting this stuff. They said, okay, they came up with a new technique. We'll see 6 months from now if anybody go to jail. The first thing happened after every disaster is that the government start through reports, it's called disaster capitalism, and see who went in and got a contract they shouldn't have got. You remember what?
General, what is the usual supply chain in a time like this? How does it usually happen?
FEMA, if FEMA is the agency that's doing the buying, first they go to the Department of Logistics. If it was MREs, for instance, they would go to the Defense Logistics Agency and say, we need 5 million MREs for, let's say, Puerto Rico. And the DLA would send it back, say the ships, airplanes will be there in so many days, so many hours. That's the way it worked. If it's 500 ambulance, FEMA would put out what is called a RFP, a request for proposal. And they would send it and post it on their website. And then some ambulance company in Ohio would say, we'll provide the 500 ambulances. They're ready to go. Where do you want them? And they would put a bid in because there might be another ambulance company from Montana that want to compete on it. So the first in with the best price normally get the contract. What they're doing up there now is unheard of. I've never seen this system used before, but it would be okay if it was working. It's not working. The audio and video don't match. I hear one thing at the briefing, and the next morning, by the next morning, 8 governors have been on television, and then the governor of New York come in and sort of sort out and calm the waters for the American people. Then the chaos starts again at the next meeting. It's like they're making this stuff up on the way to the podium. I've never seen nothing like this before.
General, would you, if you were in charge, I mean, look, you walked into New Orleans, and I remember that there's that famous moment where you yelled at them with a few select words to put down their guns.
Right.
And we're going to start doing things differently. If you were in charge and you got Cuomo and you got Bell Edwards and you got Newsom and you got DeSantis, you got all these guys saying, I'm not getting what I need. Would you start directing it to go direct, like to the governor's representative at a warehouse somewhere in Queens?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've said it 3 weeks ago. You can go check my Twitter feed. I said inside every state should have a couple National Guard soldiers at every hospital. Because right now the governors don't really know what's in those hospitals. And those sergeants, a couple sergeants or a couple lieutenants would be in every hospital, and their job is to work with the hospital supply officer, go count what they have, and go check what's in their warehouse. Get total asset visibility. Nobody bought into that idea. So what we do, we put Jerry Kushner over at FEMA. As opposed to taking a system that would work, where you got misunderstanding, chaos, and people are worried about having enough supplies, as opposed to coming up with something that will provide the information to the governor so the information is accurate. So that sergeant could call in and said to the adjutant general or the governor and said, hey, we've got 1 day of supply left. And I've also asked them to start talking about days of supply. Saying you got a 30 billion masks don't mean nothing. It's how many days of supply. This days of supply is an outfit for a doctor with an M35 mask, with a shield, with a garment, with protective gear. And then you got to have some surgical mask. That's a day of supply for 500 doctors and 300 nurses and 300 room attendants. That's a day of supply for a hospital. They still have not guarded that language because that's the way we field an army. That's how we track supplies in a large, complex organization that's spread out over large, dynamic areas. Because what you do, David, then the governor could say, this hospital have 10 days of supply, this one have 1. It's called cross-leveling of supplies. And Governor Cuomo kind of talked about it this morning. But in the military, we call that cross-leveling supplies. But we tell the one with 10 days, send 3 days of supply to hospital 8. And then we'll send your supplies back. So you cross-level so everybody have enough to keep people alive.
The president is fond of his generals. What would you tell him?
Mr. President, give the military a mission to help to manage the logistics going to the states and to the hospital. Give them a mission, not a mission assignment from FEMA, where the way FEMA is working, to give them a mission assignment. Come pick up 5 pallets and fly to Los Angeles. That's a mission assignment. Give the mission to the military and said, hey, take control of these stocks and distribute them to where they need to go. And you know what? They'll figure it out. I could not have done what we did in Katrina, operating the way they operating. Working off a mission assignment over 50 states. So everything has to go to one of the FEMA regions, who then put some holy water on it and send it to FEMA headquarters, where somebody got to say, yes, it's okay to build a field hospital in New Orleans. Or it happened by television that the governor of Louisiana is on a morning news show and said, I need another hospital. Then that afternoon, the president approved the hospital. That's the way decisions are being made. I fear the little guy, because they're going through the system to a FEMA region, sending it to FEMA headquarters. And oh, by the way, we still got houses in Puerto Rico that haven't been rebuilt. We still got none of the houses in St. Croix have been rebuilt. That's the same organization that we've now given the biggest disaster that we've ever faced in America. They're not designed for this kind of mission.
The same region that handled Puerto Rico and the USVI are now handling this pandemic response. General, I thank you. I wanted people to hear your perspective, so thank you.
And they're good people working FEMA. I'm just saying they're not designed for what we're asking them to do. The mission is too complex to put an ad hoc group together to try and solve this.
Well said. Thank you, General. Good to see you.
Have a good day. Keep it up. Good work, doctors and nurses. We got you. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Test, test, test.